So we're about to do capnometry, which is...
We're about to do capnometry biofeedback. This is a different type of biofeedback than your typical biofeedback practitioners because it looks at breathing chemistry. So, if you buy Alive, there's a lot of different types out there that you can get. They're looking at heart rate variability or looking at galvanic skin response, temperature. There's a lot of, and they're all very helpful in, helping with various autonomic nervous system issues. But this one helps us look at the breathing chemistry, specifically CO2 levels and heart rate variability and muscle tension, but specifically the CO2 levels, which is really important to our breathing chemistry, to our overall chemistry, to the pH in the body. So that pH is really important to stay in a very narrow window of 7.34 plus or minus like 0.05. And if it doesn't, this is for the pH of the interstitial fluids, the cerebrospinal fluid, the lymphatic system. So a lot of these waters in the body that are not in the GI tract, right? So
when people are drinking alkaline water and trying to do all these things, but they're not breathing right, which is the cheapest and most available form of medicine.
Yeah, in fact, the alkaline water hurts you. It's not even helpful because it's diluting the hydrochloric acid in your stomach that you need for digestion, right? So
you hear that, guys?
Yeah, so it's not like, it's a marketing gimmick, right? It's not really helping the alkalinity. Your kidneys will change, based on the food you eat over the course of 4 to 8 hours. The kidneys will affect your pH of these other fluids in the body. But it's really breathing that minute to minute is changing the pH of those fluids, right? And so we have lactic acid buildup, we have metabolic acidosis from what we eat, right? And that has to be offset with respiratory alkalosis, which is the way we breathe. Now, don't run away and think that, oh yeah, okay, if I breathe more, I'll have more respiratory and then I can get my alkalinity up. No, it's not like that. You really have to understand that pH has to stay in this narrow window and it can get too high. We really don't want it high. And most people, it actually probably is a little too high in the sense that they're over breathing, which is causing it to go up, that pH to be a little higher than it needs to be. So we'll actually see that, Ben has, if we were to have checked you out back a year ago when we had just kind of gotten started, we know that you had some issues, with your breathing habit was subpar, was, below where it needed to be. And we knew that without even looking at the breathing chemistry, we could tell through the health quiz. So on my website, there's a health quiz that, breathing.coach website. There's a health quiz you can take to see, and it kind of gives you an idea as to whether you have a functional or dysfunctional breathing habit. But you've come a long way. We know that you can now, keep up with me on the hills, if not surpass me. And so that's because of some changes you've done in the way you exercise specifically that helps your 24/7 breathing habit. We all still can get better, but, just like meditation and the ascension process, there's always further we can go. But hey, we get it now. We know how to go about improving this. Yeah.
Let's see how I do. Especially when I'm under the gun.
Right. So right now we're just going to focus on your CO2 levels. So in another video, we'll look at heart rate variability, heart rate, we'll get into more details. But the most important one we want to look at when I first assess someone is their CO2 levels. And this is just a snapshot of right here and now. So it's kind of an exploratory thing that we're doing together with myself and the client, is looking at it and going, okay, this is where your chemistry is at. Here's where it needs to be. What changes can we make, to help you move in the direction that serves you, that supports your physiology, your breathing chemistry? And what other breathing habits, like if you have a practice, a breathing practice that you do in the morning or daytime, evening, could be Wim Hof, it could be Tumo breathing, it could be just dialing down your breathing before meditation, whatever the case. We'll look at that and answer, does that serve you, your chemistry anyway, for building a better breathing habit and for building a better you? So let's see here. We're gonna just look. Then you don't even have to look right away, because often you have, under the microscope, sometimes it changes the breathing. But okay, it's been taking place. And so what we see here is over on our right, and maybe there's a way to zoom in on. But on our right side here, we're looking at 0, where we see our units are in millimeters of hydrogen. And so it goes from 0 to 50. And this is essentially reading the end tidal CO2 coming out of our lungs and out of our nostrils, because we're reading, Ben's not mouth breathing, so he's nose breathing here. And so we can see that this is the CO2 level that's coming out, because it's 1-to-1 correlated with the arterial, with the CO2 level that's in your venous system. So that's what's important here. And look, Ben's already modifying his breathing, to raise it a little bit. So it was right there at 35, which is good. We needed to be at this level, 35 millimeters of hydrogen, in order for us to have good pH of those body fluids, the cerebrospinal fluid, lymphatic system, interstitial, blood, plasma, these things. And so typically we can look at the respiration rate, which isn't always important. Someone could be breathing rabbit breaths, but still have their CO2 levels up at 35. Now that's rare. Usually when someone's breathing rapidly, 22 breaths per minute, it tends to have them over breathing a little bit. Their autonomic nervous system is in overdrive, right? So we typically want to help people bring that breathing rate down to closer to where yours is right now, 5, 6, somewhere in that, and we can fine tune that over time to where someone should be. But it's generally, people are in here starting at anywhere from 12, 15 up to 22, 23 breaths per minute, and we like to help them bring that down, right, through a variety of training means here. So and through coaching means, what they need to do outside of being here in the office. And that's really where the work is done. Just like anything, you can learn to dance, but it's really the practice and going out and working on it on your own. So that's why, kind of a breathing coach, because it's not just about you coming in here and getting treated. It's about us exploring, figuring out where it's at and how to tweak it, and then what we're going to modify in our daily routine to improve this. So let's do a few exercises here, in order to see, do you have any particular breathing practice that you do? Like, let's say you were a Wim Hof person, because a lot of people will do Wim Hof breathing. And you remember how that goes. Mm-hmm. It's just essentially kind of an over breathing practice.
So you want to start doing
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see what happens. Keep going. He would do it at least for a minute or two. Now notice that Ben is even doing this through his nose. I think, I'm not sure, but I think, when you do Wim Hof breathing, sometimes it's through the mouth, which gets more air in and more air out. How are you feeling?
Decent.
Yeah, okay. Notice any sensations in you?
I already start to tighten up quick when I do Wim Hof.
Yeah. So
tetany, subtle tetany.
Yeah, so you're feeling the tetany, right? Feeling any dizziness?
No, but that tenseness.
That tenseness, like a sympathetic or tenseness? Or
just I tighten, I get tense.
Tense, right. Yeah. Okay, now breathe through your nose. And now the idea with Wim Hof, of course, is that it's a long pause, right? But breathe normal for a second. Let's see where your CO2 levels are. just naturally, so just kind of breathe normal, and then we'll have you hold your breath, because we don't want to denigrate the Wim Hof method, because the value is that then you can, after doing this heavy oxygenation, right, and blowing off all this CO2, you can hold your breath a bit longer. So maybe there's some value there, but you don't want people to come away with thinking that that is a helpful habit to have on a regular basis, to have over breathing. So we could see that it brought his levels down from 35 or higher down to 25 millimeters of hydrogen. So that's the type of thing. And often people will feel different symptoms. So there's a whole host of symptoms that can kind of come up, and that's why breath work, over breathing like this for 25-30 minutes will have people moving through a lot of things emotionally, because it changes, and the coursework that you'll see why it changes our emotions and how it changes our physiology. So now, what would we do to bring these CO2 levels up?
Do a breath hold.
Yeah. And I noticed you can still hold your breath, but that Ben got a little stuffier too from this over breathing. And that, if we have allergies or allergy season, sometimes over breathing can bring more pollutants into our system unnecessarily. And so it can clog us up even further. Okay, back up to 36, 37. Yeah. And for some people, this recovery process takes a long time and it can be very chronic. So this is where, especially if you're subject to anxiety, panic, asthma, these are my sweet spots for helping people, mental chatter. If you sense that your sympathetic drive, you're over aroused most of the time, then you're a good candidate for coming in and getting some coaching, looking at this, helping to see where in your day we can shift some things to help bring your autonomic nervous system into balance. Because this is, if you're into living your health span, living a little longer healthily a little bit longer, when you breathe, we renormalize the breath, we're actually bringing down your heart rate at the same time. A lot of heart issues are caused by dysfunctional breathing. My dad had a heart attack before he was 60, and it was because he did a lot of marathon running, and he didn't really breathe that well while he was doing all that. And so it caught up with him, and had atrial fib after even the heart attack. It got figured out. He's 80 plus years old now, so doing okay, but that's because we have him on a shift in his breathing habit. So okay, they're somewhat renormalized. It's going to sometimes take some time to just kind of get back up there. And again, this is just this snapshot, this point in the day. We don't know how Ben's breathing is, after a big meal, or after being on a phone call with someone that pissed him off, right? All sorts of things through our day can change the way we breathe, whether it be because of our extra vigilance from, arousal from getting mad or emotions, to something physiology-wise, allergens or foods that we eat that will change that breathing habit. So, so this is a good first look window into, there's more details we go through in a full assessment here, but it's a good window into some of the benefits of getting a formal assessment, or at least starting to look at the breathing chemistry. Any questions that you have?
I have some thoughts. I heard this from our breathwork friend Stephen Jaggers. He was talking to a friend who had spent time in a Central American tribe, and they talked about how the shudder in your breath, if you have a lot of that, that's a sign of being disassociated. That's a sign of your soul not being able to be fully housed in the body. And so the most subtle exercise is to clear that shudder, to breathe fully in, fully out without, that dissonance.
Yeah.
And that helps with soul retrieval. And everyone's super big on this topic in the spiritual community. But
Interesting.
and it's also like, if we were clairvoyant, we would see shapes in our aura.
Yeah.
And just seeing shapes there, we want a lot of harmony, because that benefits living space and benefits people around us. So the breathing can help the harmony of our aura.
It's be very difficult to look at the breath itself and go, okay, let me shift my breath based on looking at it. That's the fallacy. It's kind of like looking at a great piano player and then going, oh, okay, that's all I need. That's what I need to do and become a great piano player, is to look at that, right? So there's work, but as we, coming back to your point, like, we can see kind of personality in the way someone breathes. How fast it is, whether they're taking those little shudders, as you call them, which are kind of little gasps, right? And those are signs that, hey, something is not right there, that something has caused, that it's often a past trauma that has caused one to shift their breathing habit, right? Some people have fear of the end of the breath itself, and before they even finish the breath, we can catch it and they'll be back to the next one. So these are lodged traumas in them, not necessarily from breathing, but it could be from anything, early childhood, that changes their whole autonomic nervous system. And this is just one window into that, that we can see, and that a person can then go, oh, okay, they can see it, and it helps them want to make some changes. Now, the changes aren't to always sit here, for 10 sessions and go, okay, let's breathe this way, because this is where we have to put in a program of training through the day, so that someone has a practice over a few weeks, and then come back in a couple of weeks to say, all right, if you did the work, let's go check it out now. But here's the work, and it's going to be different for everyone. I'm not going to give a prescription, the same prescription for everyone. It's going to be different, because we want it to sink in, to marry up with one's day in a way that someone will do it. We don't want to give something and then not have compliance. We want to find a way. So there's got to be a little bit of grit in someone to want to make this shift. If you're a traditional medical person where you go and get medicines for things, forget about it. Don't waste my or your time, right? This is for lifelong learners that are ready to shift, that are able to go, okay, I see something, I need an expert, I need to make this shift. And so we'll go from there.